5 Bostonians were dead or dying in the snow. And John Adams, the patriot who would help build America, chose to defend the British soldiers instead of killing them. Not because he supported British rule, he did not, but Adams believed that if the colonies demanded liberty and self-government, those principles had to apply, even when the accused men wore red coats. The road to that night had been building for years. The Stamp Act crisis had taught colonists that the argument was about more than money. They had no elected representatives in Parliament. The Declaratory Act answered that Parliament claimed authority over the colonies, in all cases whatsoever. Then came the townshend duties, tougher customs enforcement, and British troops sent to Boston in 1768. The troops did not calm Boston. They made the city angrier. Bostonians and redcoats lived side by side in a tense town. Fights and insults became routine. Every new tax, customs search, and soldier in the street reminded colonists that decisions about their lives were being made an ocean away. Then, on February 22, 1770, an 11-year-old boy named Christopher Seider was shot and killed during a confrontation involving customs informer Ebenezer Richardson. Seider's death became a rallying point. His funeral drew a huge crowd. Boston was already on edge, and now it was grieving too. 11 days later, the city exploded. On the night of March 5th, Private Hugh White stood guard outside the Custom House on King Street. A crowd gathered around him. They shouted at him. Witnesses later described snowballs, ice, and other objects being thrown. Some described sticks, clubs, and threats. The details were disputed, but the danger and confusion were real. Captain Thomas Preston arrived with 7 soldiers to support White. The crowd grew louder. The soldiers were surrounded. Someone shouted, "Fire!" But the trials would never establish, beyond reasonable doubt, who gave the command, or whether Preston gave one at all. The soldiers fired anyway. Crispus Attucks, Samuel Gray, and James Caldwell were killed that night. Samuel Maverick and Patrick Carr later died of their wounds. Boston demanded justice. Captain Preston and 8 enlisted soldiers were arrested and indicted. The case was politically radioactive. These were British troops, accused of killing colonists in the middle of a city already furious at British power. Most lawyers wanted nothing to do with them. They were guilty in the eyes of the citizens, and that's all that mattered. But John Adams took the case anyway. Adams understood the personal risk. He was already known as a patriot. Defending the soldiers could cost him clients, reputation, and standing in his own community. But Adams believed a free people had to be better than a mob seeking revenge. He joined the defense team with Josiah Quincy Jr. Their task was not to defend British policy. Their task was to insist that guilt had to be proved, and that every accused man deserved a fair trial. At the trials, the witnesses gave conflicting accounts. The prosecution argued that the soldiers had fired improperly. Adams argued that the men had been threatened and had reason to fear for their lives. As Adams put it, facts are stubborn things. Captain Preston was tried first. The jury acquitted him because the evidence did not prove that he had ordered the soldiers to fire. Then the 8 soldiers were tried separately. 6 were acquitted. 2, Hugh Montgomery and Matthew Kilroy, were convicted of manslaughter, not murder. They avoided execution, but they were branded on the thumb after claiming the benefit of the clergy. This was a process that could let first-time offenders avoid the death penalty for certain crimes. It was not the verdict Boston wanted, but it was a verdict reached through evidence, witness, juries, and law, not through rage. Meanwhile, Boston made sure the victims would not be forgotten. Paul Revere's famous engraving of the event carried a powerful image across the colonies. A line of British soldiers firing into a crowd of Bostonians. It helped turn the killings into a rallying cry against British rule. The image was not a courtroom transcript. It presented the colonial case with force and clarity, and its message landed because 5 Bostonians had truly died in a city that had endured years of taxation, enforcement, and military pressure. That is why the Boston Massacre mattered. It showed the growing cost of British rule in America. It gave the patriot cause martyrs, and it helped convince colonists that their liberties were in danger. But John Adams gave the story an even deeper meaning. He did not defend the British Empire. He defended the principle that law must stand above anger, that rights mean nothing if they disappear the moment the accused is unpopular. Before America had won its independence, John Adams showed what kind of country it needed to become. A country strong enough to fight for freedom, and principled enough to give justice even to its enemies.